The United States is celebrating July 4th, its Independence Day. In 1776, America became independent on the 4th of July. And since then, it has been one of the biggest holidays, a day of fireworks, hot dogs, and patriotism. But not this time. This time, Americans are low on morale. They don't seem as proud of their country. This is according to a new survey, and the findings are hardly surprising because the US as a country is at a crossroads. Mass shootings have become an everyday affair. Women no longer have rights over their bodies, and the United States is more divided than ever before. So, what's there to celebrate? Here's a report.
It's the 4th of July in America, a day of fireworks, parades, and patriotism. There are hot dog eating contests, key lime pie tournaments, and mass shootings. Not one, but 3 mass shootings. In Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Fort Worth, 10 people were killed, 38 injured. And the president repeated his same message again.
But Congress needs to step up, pass common sense gun safety laws to protect our kids and educators. And by the way, arming teachers is not the answer. Arming teachers is not the answer. Banning assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, extensive background checks, they're part of the answer. They'll make a big difference.
The motives are unclear, but it looks like even on July 4th, America could not let go of guns.
Come to me, hands up, keep coming, keep coming, keep coming, keep coming, keep coming.
So what's there to celebrate? Is it the mass shootings? There have been 340 so far this year. Is it the growing curbs on abortion rights? More and more states are restricting them. Is it the curbs on LGBTQ rights? The new Supreme Court verdict is chipping away at equality. Or is it the growing political divide? A widening partisan divide between Democrats and Republicans. For many people, this is a difficult holiday. They are no longer proud to be American. Extreme national pride is at an extreme low. 60% of Republicans still claim extreme national pride, but even that share has fallen. It used to be 86% in 2003. So morale is down, but what about America's morality? That's poor too. 50% of Americans say that the state of morality in the US is poor. This is according to a Gallup poll. And that's not all. The share is rising across the country, across both major political parties and even some independents. So, is this a moment of reckoning for America? Is it time for a rethink? It was long known as the land of freedom, the land of equality. But the last few years have shattered that notion. All people are equal, but in today's America, some people are more equal than others. Abraham Lincoln called the Declaration of Independence the immortal emblem of humanity. He called America the last best hope of Earth. But how can the United States be the beacon of hope when its people are not hopeful on their Independence Day?
It's almost 500 days since Russia invaded Ukraine. War fatigue has truly set in. Drone strikes don't shock people anymore, neither do multi-billion-dollar arms packages. It's all become routine. But one thing still forces world leaders to sit up and take notice: the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Here it is on the map. It is located in southern Ukraine. It is the largest nuclear plant in Europe, but right now it's under Russian control. Their soldiers captured the power plant around 16 months back. Since then, we have heard warnings after warnings. Russia will blow up the reactors, Russia will cut off water supply, Russia will sabotage the facility, but none of it has actually happened. On Tuesday, President Zelensky issued another warning. He says Russia has placed explosives on the roof of Zaporizhzhia. Listen to this.
Now we have information from our intelligence that the Russian military has placed objects similar to explosives on the roof of several power units of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. It's probable they needed to simulate an attack on the plant, or they could have some other kind of scenario.
And what is Russia saying? The very opposite. They claim Ukraine is planning to drop ammunition on Zaporizhzhia. But here's the thing about both these claims. A, there is no evidence. And B, we've heard too many of them before. In August last year, Zelensky warned of a nuclear catastrophe. He said Russia was using nuclear blackmail. In November, he warned of sabotage. The Ukrainian president urged NATO to protect the power plant. In March this year, he said Zaporizhzhia was being held hostage. Again, sort of blackmail. And in June, the president again warned of sabotage. These are just some of the major instances. Zaporizhzhia always figures in Zelensky's speeches and statements, and every time Russia has responded in the same manner. They've turned around and accused Ukraine. So what are both sides up to? In August and November last year, there was a real threat. We saw some nearby installations being shelled. Even the United Nations atomic watchdog was spooked. But since then, it's been tough to decode. The power plant itself has been disconnected. It's not plugged into Ukraine's national grid anymore. Plus, attacking Zaporizhzhia would make no strategic sense. You would open yourself up to global condemnation. You would also douse 1 million people in radiation. So logic says, do not attack. But warning of an attack is different. Both sides have accused each other of plotting attacks on Zaporizhzhia. Ukraine has used it to rally support. The UN atomic watchdog sided with them. The agency's chief has visited Zaporizhzhia thrice. And he called for Russia to hand over control to Ukraine. Even the government of India was sympathetic. Prime Minister Modi spoke to Zelensky about the nuclear threat. He said endangering such facilities would be catastrophic. So could this be a case of Ukraine crying wolf? Of trying to build pressure on Russia? Well, that's one possibility. Having said that, you cannot dispute one fact. It was Russia who attacked the plant first. Until March last year, Ukraine controlled the Zaporizhzhia plant. But Russian troops fought their way to capture it. So clearly, the Kremlin was interested in it. They wanted to control this high-value, high-risk target. The question is why? For starters, around 50% of Ukraine's power is nuclear. Zaporizhzhia used to produce around 6,000 megawatts. If you control this plant, you can turn off the lights. Perhaps that's one reason. Another possibility is to weaponize fear. If there is an accident, the Ukrainian army will have to mop up. It's their people who would be affected. Keeping that threat alive is useful for Moscow. But these are just possibilities and theories. So let's focus on what we do know. There have been dozens of warnings, but none of them have materialized. Does that mean we should just ignore it? Well, that's the trouble. How do you ignore a nuclear plant in the middle of a war zone? Both sides know it's impossible. It doesn't have to be a planned attack or sabotage. It can be unintended, like a wayward missile cutting off electricity to the plant, or fatigue and mental issues of the local staff. That is even more likely and dangerous. Just yesterday, there were more drone strikes on Ukraine. Around 43 people were injured in the Kharkiv region. Kiev says there is a counter-offensive underway. But from the looks of it, the front lines are frozen. A couple of months from now, winter will set in, which means the front lines will actually freeze over. So the biggest threat to Zaporizhzhia is not some calculated and devious strike. It's A, an unintended disaster, and B, desperation. If you're desperate enough, you will forget logic. You will even attack a nuclear plant and blame it on the other side. The question is, who will reach that point first? Our next story is from China, and it's a story that writes itself. Look at the pictures. This is what parts of China look like. What you see right now is Chongqing in central China. It has seen very heavy rainfall in the last few days. At least 15 people have died. Some others are still missing. The streets are inundated. Cars have been submerged. Rainwater mixed with mud has painted the streets brown. Several counties in this region have issued red alerts. This is one of the worst affected areas in China. Look at this video. It shows rain causing a building to crumble. These images came out yesterday. The day before that, another dramatic video emerged. It shows a couple being rescued. This was from China's Henan province. Rains are battering almost every part of the country. They're causing heavy losses. Some 10,000 people have been rescued from this area, the central Hunan province. Dozens of buildings have collapsed. Initial estimates peg the damage at $80 million, 80 million, and the worst may be yet to come. In the Sichuan province, more than 85,000 people have been displaced. President Xi Jinping has called on local authorities to step up to make stronger efforts to protect lives and property from severe flooding. The Chinese government has also announced emergency funds, some $44 million for disaster relief. But that may not be enough because the crisis spans large parts of the country. And it's not just the heavy rains. While most of China is inundated, some areas in the north are facing extreme heat. And some places like Shanghai are suffering both rain and heat. Authorities have issued an orange heat alert for Shanghai. The temperature could go up to 37 degrees, which may not sound too extreme for us here in India, but for the Chinese it is a lot. They've already seen 4 regional heat waves this summer, also recorded the highest ever number of hot days over 6 months. And hot days are when temperatures cross 35 degrees Celsius. And Beijing is among the worst hit. Chinese Met authorities have issued a warning. They say the country can expect multiple natural disasters in July. Those were the words they used, multiple natural disasters. This includes floods, typhoons, and high temperatures. And this will take a toll on more than just people. China's agricultural sector will also be gravely affected by what's happening. In fact, that has already begun. The rains have disrupted wheat harvests. The kernels are turning black and unfit for consumption. Officials say this is the worst setback for the wheat harvest in a decade. Meanwhile, the heat has led to the death of fish in rice paddies where they're cultivated. Hundreds of pigs have also died due to the heat. It's been so bad that authorities have had to splash water on pigs being transported to prevent heat strokes. So both grain and meat production has been hit by the extreme weather, and this will affect China's food security. Remember, food security is central to Xi Jinping's policies. He's been trying to make China completely self-sufficient in food, so much so that he's been accused of hoarding food during the pandemic. But repeated climate disasters are denting his plans. Because this is not the first such flood. Of late, China has been seeing heavy rains and extreme weather every summer. You may remember this from 2021. More than 300 people died in floods in just the central province of Henan. So extreme weather is becoming more frequent and damaging. 20 cities in China have been flooded this week. 11 of the 31 provinces in the country are bracing for more heavy rains. Experts say there's more disruption and destruction in store. Our next story is about smartphones. They've become near universal among children and teenagers. 76% of children between ages 10 and 14 use mobile phones the world over. And this is despite the side effects, the known side effects. There's abundant research on that, on what phones do to teens, how they hurt mental health, how addictive they are, and how they impede attention. Yet children are glued to their digital bricks, and parents are confused about what to do. So now schools and governments are deciding for them. The latest headline is from the Netherlands. The country is banning mobile phones, tablets, and smartwatches from classrooms. Our next report tells you more.
Mobile phones have become intertwined with our lives. They are almost like our extended limb because these digital bricks are attached to us at all times. We take them to work, to our bedrooms, our kitchens, and even our schools. Because mobile usage isn't limited to adults. Smartphones have also become the norm among children and teenagers. Between ages 10 and 14, 76% of children use mobile phones worldwide. And this is the world average. But in many countries, the numbers are far greater. In the UK, 91% of children aged 11 have mobiles of their own. So do 80% of children aged 9 to 16 in Europe and 76% aged 10 to 14 in India. They use mobile phones during classes and free periods alike, even during lunchtime and bus rides. The question is, do mobile phones belong in schools? According to the Netherlands, no. So they're banning mobile phones, tablets, and smartwatches from classrooms. The ban will come into force on 1st January, and the Dutch aren't the only ones with such a ban. In 2018, France banned mobile phones in schools. So did China in 2021. Italy enforced a similar ban last year. And most recently, Finland said it too wants to join the club. Even if some countries are dragging their heels to ban mobiles, schools are taking matters into their own hands. Like in the US, schools in more than 7 states have banned devices in class. Others are joining the wave. Because the use of mobiles in schools is a growing issue worldwide. And the risks of excessive device usage are well documented. Phones can be addictive and distracting. Studies say higher use of social media increases the risk of depression. And that social media use predicts lower life satisfaction in teens. So, why are children given a smartphone in the first place? It's a modern dilemma, and parents are still divided over it. Some think neither the school nor the government should dictate phone usage. The decision should be personal, and that children often use their devices to simply listen to music, arrange rides home, and check on grades or assignments. But many parents disagree. They believe children end up using their phones for so much more. The fear of missing out has them constantly scrolling on social media. They even fall prey to cyberbullying or lose all awareness of what's going on around them. And when grades tank, phones are the first thing to blame. Sure, phones can be useful, especially during emergencies and for research on assignments. But we all know that phone usage is rarely limited to that. So maybe to err on the side of caution, banning phones in schools isn't a bad idea.
And while China may be an extreme case, the rest of the world is hardly doing better. On Monday, we broke a record. The world recorded its hottest day ever. Average temperature hit 17 degrees Celsius for the first time. And then we broke that record again on Tuesday. That's when the world's average temperature was 17.1 degrees Celsius. So we've seen 2 of the hottest days on record in a row. And this is the average of temperatures from the poles to the equator. It's not just the land, the seas too are heating up. This can have devastating effects. The most obvious is an increase in tropical storms, your cyclones, hurricanes, or typhoons. Warm seas will result in more of these. But there are other impacts as well, like wildfires, droughts, and heavy rains. And all of these extreme weather events are on the rise. Here's a report.
Wildfires in Canada. Heat waves in the southern US and northern Mexico. Extreme heat in Southeast Asia. Record heat and torrential rains in China. Everywhere you look, the world is in a state of upheaval, and it's breaking records. The planet just saw its 2 hottest days on record, back to back. On Monday, the global average temperature was 17 degrees Celsius. It was the highest in recorded history. The last high was 16.9 degrees in 2016. And then on Tuesday, it went further up. The global average temperature was 17.1 degrees Celsius. Now you may think 17 degrees is no big deal. And the rise of 0.1 degrees isn't much. But remember, this is the global average. It isn't evenly distributed. So some places become hotspots, like Texas and Arizona in the US, the northern regions of Mexico, Shanghai and Beijing in China, Spain. And it's these hotspots that are driving up the global average temperature. The worst part is, this is probably just the beginning. Experts say there will be more record-breaking days ahead. Which brings us to the question, why? One reason is, of course, human-induced climate change. Our constant greenhouse gas emissions. They help trap heat within the atmosphere, so temperatures go up. The other cause for the extreme weather is the El Niño weather phenomenon. It occurs naturally over the Pacific Ocean. It causes ocean surface temperatures to rise. It takes place every few years, and this year it's back.
The tropical Pacific Ocean is currently experiencing El Niño condition. And this is a result of rapid and substantive change both in the atmosphere and in the ocean. What we know is that throughout the next 5 years, we are likely to have one of the warmest years on record.
He says one of the next 5 years will be the warmest on record. And 2023 is already breaking heat records, even before the El Niño is in full swing. This is thanks to our greenhouse gas emissions. Look at some recent examples. Cyclone Biparjoy in the Arabian Sea. It was a rare occurrence, as powerful cyclones usually form on the other side of the Indian subcontinent. Then look at the wildfires in Canada. They do have an annual wildfire season, yet this year they've seen some of the worst. Same with Russia's Siberia. It's a region known for its inhospitable cold. Now, each of these events can be explained as an anomaly, but look at them together and you'll see a pattern. Climate change may not start causing Katrina-like hurricanes every day, but the chance of it happening again in our lifetimes increases. And less powerful disasters will become more frequent. They'll start becoming a part of our lives, making our lives more miserable. The only way to stop this is for governments to recognize the danger and act now.
And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. Yesterday we showed you a Japanese sea turning red. Today we bring you visuals of a Japanese river turning lime green. No one knows what happened and why this happened. But an investigation is underway. On a Florida beach, swimmers got a surprise guest, a shark. It was captured on camera swimming alongside beachgoers. In India's Nagaland, giant boulders crushed cars after a landslide, killing 2 people. The horrific footage was captured on a car's dash cam. And finally, what makes the 5th of July significant? We're taking you back in history to the year 1977, to Pakistan's Black Day, when General Zia-ul-Haq raised a coup. He seized power from President Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, leading to 11 years of martial law in the country. We're leaving you with these images. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.